Good morning, everyone. This is Mighty Stream. Today is May the 11th, and I wanted to greet you today with the Just for Today in a meditation. I'm brought to you by Hope Through Navigation, and this is our Hood Recovery Services. Hood is an acronym, HOOD, that stands for Hope Offered on Demand. You can reach me at any time at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Well, I'm excited to get into the Just for Today. Caught a glimpse of the title, but I didn't get a chance to read it. But let's read it together. May 11th, Balancing the Scales. A lot of our chief concerns and major difficulties come from our inexperience with living without drugs. Often when we asked an old timer what to do, we are amazed at the simplicity of the answer. Basic text, page 43. Finding balance in recovery is quite a bit like sitting down with a set of scales and a pile of sand. The goal is to have an equal amount of sand on each side of the scales, achieving a balance of weight. We do the same thing in recovery. We sit down with the foundation of our clean time and the 12 steps, then attempt to add employment, household responsibilities, friends, sponsees, relationships, meetings, and service in equal weights so that the scales balance. Our first try may throw our personal scales out of kilter. We may find that because of our over-involvement in service, we have upset our employer or our family. But when we try to correct this problem by resigning from NA service altogether, the other side of the scales go out of balance. We can ask for help from members who have stabilized their scales. These people are easy to recognize. They appear serene, composed, and self-assured. They'll smile in recognition at our dilemma and share how they slowed down, added only a few grains of sand at a time to either side of the scales, and were rewarded with balance and recovery. Just for today, I seek balance in my life. Today, I will ask others to share their experience in finding that balance. What a beautiful meditation for today. This is one of those meditations that I wish I could remember what day it was on. So I could go back to it and refer to it often. I like the analogy of balancing the scales and having sand and our 12 steps on one side, and then adding employment and household responsibilities, friends, sponsees, relationships, meetings, and service. And this is applicable to everyone because this is an art. Balancing the scales of life, the scales of recovery is an art, right? It takes strategic planning. It takes humility. It takes willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. It's developed over time. When I say it's an art, it's not something that you can come into the program and expect to perfect. When you get into the program of Narcotics Anonymous, or you get into any process of stopping one thing that has been detrimental to your overall well-being, that process alone will bring changes. The process of not using drugs to cope with everyday living is a process within itself, right? Because in the fourth edition, I'm gonna say like the third edition and the fourth edition of the basic text, around, I want to say page 123, it's a story in the back of the basic text from the old editions that are it's no longer in the newer one, the sixth edition. But there's a story, a personal story there, and the person is telling their story and they're saying how they grieved not using. Their drug of choice was like their lover. And so I just want to emphasize that anytime you stop, there has to be a time period where you allow your mind, your physical self, your whole being to adjust to the absence of that thing. Okay. And then after that, after the shakiness of detoxing and just getting in the swing of things, of actually being able to, maybe you can't even get to sleep, right? You used to use something to go to sleep and you use something to wake up, or maybe you never went to sleep, you just passed out and you came to. There's a process, even if it was food or sex, there's a process of your body having to adjust holistically to not having that crutch, right? That dependency that you have. And when you get past that, now this becomes the scale, right? This is the scale that we're talking about here, where you're now going to uh, replace whatever you were using with just being clean and the 12 steps, and hopefully a sponsor doing the 12 steps, actively trying to understand the things that went into you picking up to begin with, so that when they come back up, because life does happen and it's going to happen, the world didn't stop just because you got clean, so that you would be able to recognize them and say, oh, okay, I remember this. I remember this exact same feeling. And I remember that I used for 2 weeks behind that. I relapsed behind that, or whatever you did, right? And so now you're able to say, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to just bare knuckle this. I'm not going to do the things that I used to do. And so that is one process. Now we get over to the productive member of society process. You know, I was listening to a really good friend of mine share, and from, you know, he's been clean for a couple years or so, but he had several years of clean time and he had relapsed. And he was just saying, like, I was so absent from my family, and my wife was so tired of trying to make excuses for my absenteeism. And she made a decision when I went out the last time that she was going to end our, you know, divorce me, end it, right? And so he said it was like he got clean in just the nick of time, or just happened to come back by the house right at the stage where she was starting to separate their belongings. And he just begged, please, please give me a chance. I'll go into treatment. I won't try to do it on my own. Just if after I get out of treatment, you don't like what you see, then move forward. By all means, you have every right. But let me try to use, you know, the facility to help me detox and get better. And she gave him that opportunity. Today, you know, he's always posting beautiful pictures about him and his family. You can see pictures of them, and it's just beautiful. But there was a time where now he's out of treatment and he's in the home again, and that is a process of getting used to having people present with you every day doing life. Whereas you used to be able to just take off and go use, but now you get to hear what it's like when the children wake up and rushing around in the morning, and your significant other is fussing at them, trying to get them to get into gear to get out the door on time. And that can be irritating, right? To now have to do life with everyone else. And it can make you want to pull back, because it's like, man, this is craziness, really? Yeah, it is. And guess what? It's been getting done without you. And if you decide to go back and use, it will continue to get done without you, right? Now, if you want to add your energy and be the father, be the mother, and you want to show up for life and live life on its own terms, if you actually want to do that, you're welcome to it. But if you decide this isn't what you want, your misery will gladly be refunded to you. But this is what we call life. This is doing life. Yeah, and there's meals to cook. And when they come home, there's meals to cook, homework to look at, right? There's discussions to have with the teachers. There's disciplinary things that need to take place. And then there's the bath and everything else. right? Because these little people are developing into complete human beings with their own thought processes. And so showing up for life is not, I'm on the scene now, everything's great. No, no, everything's not great because life is not always going to be a bowl of cherries for us. And so there's this process that every person must go through of adding things to the other side of the scale. Now you got all your self-help stuff. What about the productive member of society? What about being fully self-supporting? What about those things? Learning how to apply for jobs and respond to questions that you might be asked on your interviews. Why is it you've been out of work for 2 years? I mean, out of work for any amount of time, unless you have a disability, is a hard thing to try and explain. So now you're in a position where you need to be able to unmute myself. Sorry about that. You're in a position where now you have to figure out how to add the responsibilities grain by grain, one on this side, one on, okay, so for instance would be you start working and you're spending about 10 hours between getting ready to go to work, traveling, getting to work, and then getting home. So you got 10 hours ate up out of your day. And now you rather just come home and crash. But you haven't ate a proper meal. You didn't eat breakfast, and you may not have even ate a proper lunch, depending on what funds you had available for lunch or whatever. So now, how do you balance the other side of the scale? That's a great responsibility, but what about taking care of your physical self? You have to figure those things out, and that does not come overnight. A lot of times it just simply comes by trial and error. When you have to wake up and you haven't had the proper nourishment and you're given a full day's work, that's only going to get you so far. You're going to develop a dependency on coffee or sugar, something to get your energy going, and that's not necessarily going to be in your best long-term interest. And so I just want to say, this is like, I would say, I've got like 5 just for today NA meditations throughout the whole year that really, really, really mean a lot to me. And I feel like this is one of the ones I want to add to my tool belt, May 11th, because it just reminds me that I need to take care of all fronts. Everything has to balance out, and if it's not practical, it's not spiritual. And as soon as I allow something to get off kilter, right, then that becomes like a balancing act now, whereas it's easier to take care of those things up front. It's easier to adjust them up front rather than just, becoming, we transfer our sessions, right? So sometimes we'll just run completely towards the other direction because it feels good and we like it, and then forget, oh yeah, I can't stay in the gym 4 hours a day and be involved with traveling, going back and forth to work 10 hours a day. That's 14 hours a day. I only have 10 left, and then I'm gonna stay up and study for my course. No, at some point in time, something is going to throw you completely off. And if you are not a master at the maladjustment, right? If you're not a master at being out of kilter, you're going to default to the things that make you feel good, that are quick and easy, instant gratification. And those instant gratification type things really don't fit in our lives today. They don't fit in our lives today. And so I'm encouraged by this just for today. I hope that you're encouraged by it. My challenge for you today would be to look at your life in the aspect of your recovery and the things you're doing to make sure that your mental health, your whole well-being, like your mental health, your physical, your, I want to say financial, and your spiritual, to make sure that all of those things are I would say at least like an 8, somewhere with 10 being excellent, right? And 1 being like horrible. I would say they need to be well over the halfway mark. And if they're not well over the halfway mark of 5, then I want for you to figure out what else you need to do to bring them up higher. 9 times out of 10 is something on the other side of the scale that is feeling like it's excellent, right? And you might need to dial those things back so you can find some hours in your day where you're actually able to invest. Like, for instance, for me, I have a autoimmune disorder called Sjogren's. It's a lot like, I want to say it's a lot like lupus. It's in the same family, right? And so that coupled with fibromyalgia, I'm generally in pain most of the time. I've gotten to the point where I can just endure it. But there's this one thing that I love to do, and when I do it, it helps me think better. And that's when I go see my chiropractor. When I incorporate seeing my chiropractor at least 2-3 times a week, I seem to be able to get through the day a lot easier. So that's an area in my life where I need to stop talking about it and get back to seeing my chiropractor, because it makes me more happy, it makes me more joyful, and it makes the endurance of the physical pain a lot more feasible for me, right? I can get anything I want from my doctor for the pain that I'm in. I can get anything that I want in pill form from my doctor for the pain that I'm in. But I choose to manage it holistically for me in a way that feels okay for me, right? And so that's my challenge, right? I should be able to come back here tomorrow and say, you know what, I made my appointment. So what's your challenge? What is out of kilter and that you need to balance your scales? And I want to encourage you to balance your scales today. My name is Mighty Stream. I've enjoyed the time that I've had with you, and I really do hope that you have a beautiful day, a day where if you're not in balance, you're able to start putting forth the effort to balance your life. Have a beautiful day. Talk to you tomorrow.